Okay, so take us through planetary education. Take us through it right from define it in a sentence, and then take us through your process and your journey developing that pedagogy for the environment and current generations and for the future.
So one sentence first, and then...
And also introduce what planetary education is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's a new way of education. Mm-hmm. That's my one sentence. But I'm going to do my spiel here. So in the current climate, both atmospherical and social, the current educational landscape is not fit. Like, it's failing everyone. It's failing teachers. It's failing students. It's failing everyone else connected with education, parents, and it doesn't have to be like that. Planetary education is a very local and situated way of learning. It's critical pedagogy that kind of, because of its locality and its situatedness, or like despite of it maybe, has also applicability to like a more planetary view, potentially, you could say it like that. So the core principles of it, so it does different things. And one of them is, for example, it looks at the current curriculum. It's like really bad. Really, I can't even say it nicely. It's really bad. And it takes away with like fragmented subjects. It takes a web of interconnected lessons, each lesson lasting about a month, 2 months, kind of depending on how much you want to add to it. And builds from that. And each lesson has like repeating elements. It has opportunities for peer-to-peer teaching, for going into nature, all of these kind of elements. And it's it also changes the way we assess students, like going away from like grades to a lesson passport where you get written feedback on it. You have just a proper interaction with the nature that is surrounding you, really. And like, because we're a living organism, and so is like a lot of other organisms in the world. But like, if you look at our school system, that has been developed just purely based on economics. Like, we have the summers off because we used to work in the fields. Like, children used to.
Kids were needed to pick potatoes. That's it.
It's like, so that's the first thing. And then we go time-wise. It's like, because parents go to work, so children need to go to school. Like, and like the way these things are timed is also like now kind of like bad for parents as well when school starts a certain way. And so all these kind of things are happening. So why don't we learn on like living time rather than like this very like economically driven time? Mm-hmm. And then I've been reading a lot of research on that, and like most books were at least from the 80s. There's one really, really good book I was researching by C.A. Mace called The Psychology of Study, which is from the 20s, which is absolutely wild that like we still don't have these principles in there. But he likens like the idea of learning to digestion. So you have an appetite for learning, but you need to digest in between learning. So you have this way of learning and like digesting and learning and digesting and applying. So that's kind of a big part in structuring the curriculum. And then at the center of each lesson is a living organism through which you learn. So obviously you've got biology, mathematics. Funnily enough, like a lot of like mathematical concepts are really hard to grasp if you have like no interaction with it. Like, especially like we saw with COVID and all of these things. linear growth, and what's the other one?
Exponential?
Yes, exponential growth. Thank you. Like exponential growth, it's a really hard concept for people to grasp. But if they learn through it through like bacterial algae that has this growth cycle that goes through linear, that goes through exponential, that goes through like stagnation, you can put all of the parameters just into a different context, and it just is so much more understandable. And you can do that with like lichen as well, and like lichenometry. And the biology.
What is lichenometry?
Lichenometry is there's like a lot of people who are kind of not against it, but they like obviously see flaws in it. But basically, if a glacier, for example, melts and the rocks are exposed, the first thing that will grow on it is lichen, and you can use with like photos and measuring and like doing the calculation on how quickly that lichen grows to measure how old that glacier is, or like when this glacier got uncovered. Because a lot of times in certain regions you can't use the carbon dating method, and it's only accurate to the last 500 years or something like that. So what do you do before or after, something like that? I can't fully remember what the cutoff time is with like carbon dating, but it is used in these regions, and it's quite a low stakes kind of like thing you can do, which is really fascinating. And there's like on the PISA test, there's also an example of this in there. Funnily enough, I found by accident and was like, that's kind of cool that they have this, but they have, again, no other information about lichen or lichenometry or anything else on there. So it's like, what are you doing? Why is it just a random ass questions there? But yeah, and then obviously like through a living organism, like lichen, for example, which is the one I was like fully developing, you learn about psychology, you learn about sociology. There are some good examples like queer lichen theory and We've Never Been Individuals that talk about like gender and sex and like social norms and all of these kind of elements through like lichen and like certain other organisms. Because like, the thing is also when we talk about nature and we use nature as an example, it's usually to discriminate people. Like, you know, you don't say, oh, this is unnatural, and then like don't follow it up with something that's a bit heinous. So it's kind of like also like using this idea of being like, actually, if you look at nature, there's kind of proofs like not your hate point. Like this is actually, like these things actually happen, and like we're part of nature. Like why would it be only us that do certain things? So there's a lot of that in there, and then obviously there's a lot of like, as I said, it's critical pedagogy. So there's a lot of abolitionist teachings in there, trying to like empower those voices who so far are, like have not been heard, but should be heard and should be sought out to be heard. Okay.
No,
oh my god, there are so many, so many really incredible points.
Yeah.
I think I speed run through all of them.
Okay.
I think the thing about contextualizing maths, for example, is super important because there's huge amounts of psychological research in neuroscience that shows that learning has to be embodied. You know, that's how we have evolved to learn, you know, things in context and things that involve all of our senses. And that's not how maths is taught at all.
No.
It is so abstracted and so esoteric, but it could be so fun if you learn like, how could this be applied?
Also seems like a way more flexible structure for anyone who's neurodivergent, or just has like different learning styles.
For everyone, for literally everyone,
Yep.
literally everyone. And this is for key stages 3 and 4, which is 11 to 16 in the UK.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the first starting point, but in reality, you can like change the age levels depending on how you make it, like how easy you make it. Like for example, with like I've got in the curriculum I made, you've got these insert more knowledge elements where you can adapt it and you can learn more about stuff. Like obviously with like lichen, you can like you can make your own, just like a key indicator species on air quality. So you can add in a session where the children learn how to make their own air quality sensors out of Arduino boards, and like do peer-to-peer teaching there, where you've got groups, because not everyone will be interested in like Arduino boards, technology, and coding. So obviously you don't make it like compulsory, and like students will enjoy it and others won't. And if you put them in groups that work that well, that way, then you can like easily adapt. And then you also go into like this idea of like neurodivergent students and like cater to their strengths and like make it also like engaging.
There was also a really incredible aspect of this pedagogy that I found really interesting, which was like centering multiple subjects around like a local organism. And so you have this like, again, really contextualized interdisciplinary learning. So you kind of interweave your knowledge from all subjects, and they reinforce each other. And it's also something that you can physically interact with and have a relationship with in your local ecosystem.
Yeah, that was kind of like one of the big things where I always found it weird that you learn like about an hour about something and then you switch completely to something else. And it's like, I've just learned about like the mitochondria or something, and then, okay, now I'm doing like divisions. What's going on? Like, this has no connection to each other. Like, your brain has to change so quickly. And like, I don't think 5 minutes of break are enough, or 10 minutes or whatever. But it's just better to see it as we need to learn as a whole. Like, that's one of the big things. We need to learn as a whole. And the interesting things about these as well, like it might seem super, super local. Like, obviously with like the session I did on lichen, you learn about obviously the British Isles, if you're in the UK. But if you are somewhere else, you won't have that specific type of lichen, but you might have a similar one, or you will have a similar one. And with that similar one, you might have to adapt that lesson a tiny bit, but then you can do the same lesson somewhere else that's also super, super local. But lichen is a bad example because they grow really slow. But like with a certain other organism, you still have the skills to cultivate either organism, or at least have the skills to be quite quick in figuring out what you need to do to cultivate another organism. So everyone kind of learns super local, but they all kind of learn the same and like have similar skill sets. Like, obviously very different interests, and that will manifest quite differently, but like theoretically skill sets are the same like worldwide. And that way you can also foster a community of educators, teachers, as well as students as well. Like,
the glocality is
glocality.
You can just feel it in there. Like it's,
yeah.
I do want this world.